Hello and welcome to Better Than StarCraft. Today we won't be playing Virtua Fighter 4. We won't be playing Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution. We won't be playing Virtua Fighter 4 Final Tuned. Not to mention we won't be playing Virtua Fighter 5. We won't be playing Virtua Fighter 5 or Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown or Ultimate Showdown, because I've ordered an arcade stick and it hasn't arrived yet, so I can't play it properly. Playing it on a joypad just hurts my hands. Because today we are playing a very, very special, not quite final tuned version of original Annihilation. A bastardized version of the Irish Balance, otherwise known as original OTA. Original Annihilation. Designed by Tag Venom. We've got represented in green today our Irish doppelganger, playing against Pro Randy, who is another Englishman, if I'm not mistaken. I used to play a little bit of TA Spring with Pro Randy, but I'm not sure. But also a very good player. He might have a bit of ring rust because he hasn't been on here in a while, but he's been back in the last few days and racking up some games. So this is the first public release of ProTA, which is a new mod for Total Annihilation that attempts to tweak the original balance and give us something a little bit more like the original, rather than something like Escape, which is a little bit more experimental and a bit more supreme commanderish, if that's such a thing. So I'll try and summarize. Like, he hasn't changed that much, but like what he has changed kind of has various implications which are kind of hard to summarize in one game. I mean, that's what's good about OTA, is it plays very differently depending on the map that you're playing. So I would say ProTA plays extremely similarly to OTA on like C maps and on kind of low resource maps. And then when you get a slightly more high resource game or a land map, that's where things start to deviate quite a bit, because for the first time level 2 units, land units, are actually sort of economical. There aren't major changes to them in terms of how they function, but they're just more economical, so you can mass them and get a bit of a kind of large scale battle with them in the same way that you would have with flash tanks or Samsons or something like that. So we've got some weasels going in from Venom. Weasels are still pretty underpowered, so a couple of Samsons sort them out. You know, missile units still really useful, certainly at the earlier stages, lighter units. But people are building light laser towers now as well, because they aren't much more powerful. They still cost about 300 metal. You know, they're quite expensive, a lot of energy, but they've got actual range now, and they can kill something, which was not the case at all with the originals. And Core is viable now. I don't like how the new Core Commander looks. He just looks too fiddly and detailed. Certainly this resolution. I liked the chunky boy. I liked a full fat commander. This diet Core Commander doesn't please me. But, you know, aside from a few aesthetic things, like there's a lot more team color on the units, and I was a bit unsure about that originally, but apparently it's really just for visual clarity, so that it's easier to tell in team games. It's easier to see which units are yours and which are theirs. I mean, I would have thought that was relatively obvious, but certainly with the tempo that people can play this game today, and the amount of crap they can build, because people are playing aggressive and they're building like crazy, whereas it used to be one or the other years ago. Now it seems a lot of people can do both. That you know, visual clarity is probably important, so you can play at these high speeds. Maybe I'm getting old, but I don't remember people being that good at video games before, whereas now it seems like everyone is just watching YouTube and studying the strats, and just like the base level of ability in these games is massively improved on what it used to be. Instigators are pretty damn good these days. Like, a lot of the units are really good, so the fact that the defenses have been buffed slightly has not meant that people are playing less aggressively, because stumpies and raiders are fire now as well. A lot of things are very good at dealing with empty forests. That's what I've been noticing, is that you'll see people hooking, you know, 10 or 15 missile towers, and you send in a few units and you see them get chopped down very quickly. Balance seems good so far, but we shall see, because the level 2 battles in particular are pretty complicated. There's some mad ranged units, there's some very tanky units, and the interactions that are going on between a flock of Zeus and some shooters are pretty complicated. But I think the good thing about TA is units can kind of look after themselves to some extent. They don't need to be microed that extensively. So even with ranged units and artillery and things, if you aren't paying super close attention, they're still somewhat effective. Whereas in like something like Forged Alliance, I think unless you're positioning things very carefully and giving it your full attention, then things can go bad for you very, very quickly. But TA is more of a production and just keeps spamming out things. So units still have the, well, as I said, because it's about massed units, they still have that disposable factor. That means fucking up one battle isn't the end of the world some of the time. You can rebuild really quickly, so that you aren't on a knife edge too much. Randy's energy is getting a bit of a hammering. If that were Cool Nick, I've been watching a lot of Cool Nick games, and that man can lose half his wins because he's got like 10 bajillion wins anyway. For a very strong builder in this game, then you're that much more resilient. God, I tried to play a couple of games yesterday and I was going, I definitely need to knock off the ring rust because I'm not building fast enough. I probably have a leg up on some of the escape layers, because at least I have a good sense of how the units work in the original balance, but I definitely am not able to click fast enough, and I get mixed up on what my keys are and stuff, and there's no time for that. This game is too fucking fast the way people are playing nowadays. So what other changes? I suppose the instigator can actually hit things now, and it doesn't accelerate like a I don't know, like a 1970s Lada. It's got a bit of maneuverability, so it's pretty much the equal of the Flash now. The Flash remains completely unchanged. It's It's a bit hard to tell what Core's weak points are now. But ARM have some pretty tanky level 2 units as well. As I said, the aforementioned Zeus are pretty dangerous. I think that's one of the things that had to get nerfed slightly in the beta builds. But there weren't any other major changes, so I mean, I think Venom had a good sense of what needed to be done. That there hasn't been a big pushback against anything in particular that I know of. It's like Randy is getting a wee bit overrun. I know the Roccos, I'm not sure about the Storms. They have a little bit of homing on their missiles now, so they're still, you know, kind of direct fire. But they've certainly been improved slightly. That's where you see kind of a bit of everything. We haven't seen a lot of Roccos and Roccos and what was it about? Oh no, we haven't seen a lot of Raiders and Stumpies yet, but I've definitely seen them used pretty heavily in some matches, and they're fairly devastating. There's a good transition period as well, where you see a lot of T1 and T2 working together, or people, you know, controlling space with T1 units against T2 units. Depends on how much space you have to work with. It'll be interesting to see how this plays in a large team game. It's primarily balanced for 1 versus 1, and maybe that's the way to do it, because I'm not sure you can balance like 4 versus 4 games. It's like you'd have to rebalance the whole thing around that, or choke point maps, because, you know, a defensive unit is twice as good, and something light that raids, and there we are, and that's it. That's all that she wrote. Okay, I'll maybe I didn't pick the best demo, but I said I'd just have a little bit of a ramble here, because people say I should do this when I'm drunk. I'm not very drunk, but I am back from the pub, so that'll do. It's pretty good. I talked and you listened, assuming that I recorded it correctly. And yeah, I'll as I say, there's a lot of demos coming out. I'm going to have a little route through them, and I'll hopefully find something. You know, we'll see. I'm definitely finding these a lot more fun to watch than I have watching 15-year-old OTA games. You know, it's nice to have some fresh action. And if you want to play ProTA, you can. There's a link up on its first post on TA Universe. I'll put it in the description as well. And you know, it's version 4.3. You can grab it there. If you haven't got TA installed, you can buy it in Good Old Games. You can buy it in Steam for like a $5. You drop in the drop-in patch. You can Google that, and then copy the folder, and then you can drop the ProTA files in. Go to taforever.com. There's lots of people on there now. It's pretty easy to find a match. That's why it depends on what time zone you're in, but I mean, there's Australians playing it, there's Americans playing it, and there's people in Europe playing, and anytime I've logged on, it's pretty easy to find a match, and with people of a lower level as well, if you want to do that. So it's lovely. TA is a little bit more active and TA in the gameplay sense that I'm, you know, I remember it, is a little bit more active than it has been in a very, very long time. So it's great to have all the old players back, and you know, this is probably what got me interested in casting again. Was, you know, I had a sense that things were starting to pick up again. So Lots more casts coming up here. This game is still better than StarCraft, and thank you for listening. Good night.